I was born in Houston, Texas on January the 19th, 1929, and I was a preemie baby. I only weighed 2 pounds when I was born. My mother was out from what they tell us, my mother was out doing laundry, hanging her clothes out on the line, and she went into labor. And she had me before the doctor could get there. And he said, "That baby can't possibly live. She only weighs 2 pounds." My mother said, "Oh, yes, she can." And here I am. All these years later, I made it. Back in those days, your oven in the kitchen, your stove was on tall legs, and the oven was above. And so they just lighted the oven and put me underneath the stove to keep me warm. And the doctor said there was no way that baby could possibly live. And my mother said, "Oh, yes, she can." So you're looking at her now. You're looking at her now. But she used to feed me with an eyedropper, a drop at a time, so I wouldn't choke. So she said a regular baby diaper, she could make 4 for me from a regular sized baby diaper in those days. My mother had this wedding ring, and she put it on my wrist as a bracelet when I was a baby. Yeah, and she'd take a regular sized diaper and make 4 out of one. Yeah, that's how tiny I was. My mother was a good mother. She loved her children dearly, and she took an awful lot of time with us. And I can remember when I was in school, if the weather was really bad and I came home, she'd have homemade cinnamon rolls for us and hot chocolate waiting for us when we came home. And she used to ride bicycles with us. And I remember one time my dad was working for the Hughes Tool Company, which was Howard Hughes' company, as a first aid man there. And he got a bonus every year. So he took the bonus and he'd buy our Christmas presents with it. So we were sitting in the living room one day, and Mother was in the kitchen doing something. Dad was at work, and they had forgotten to take the opening thing that looked up and you could get in the attic. They forgot to put it up. So we looked up there, and there was 2 bicycles, 2 tricycles, and a wagon up there. But we made out like we didn't know that we saw them, so we'd be surprised on Christmas Day. And another thing that happened one time was a man was driving by, and we were all sitting out on the steps playing, and the man was going to ask directions, and he wanted to know what orphanage that was. Because we were all dressed alike. My mother made our clothes to look alike, you know, the boys in blue pants and white shirts, and the girls in blue shorts and white shirts. So, but we never told him that we'd seen the Christmas presents, because we didn't want to break their hearts, see. So, and then we had a dog when we were little that used to go to church with us. The dog would lay underneath the first bench where we used to always sit while Mother played the piano. And the only time she wasn't there was when she had puppies. And then the preacher would say, "Oh, I guess the dog had puppies." "Yeah, but she'll be back." She never missed a Sunday with us. Yeah, she was a good dog. We had fig trees in our backyard then, and so we would pick the figs, and then we could take them around the neighborhood and sell them to the neighbors for a quarter a bucket, you know. So that's how we made our spending money. We'd buy candy with it, or there was an ice cream truck that would come by once a week, and we'd save our money and buy ice cream and things like that. That's what we did. I remember one time we went downtown. This was when I was a little older. And Mother saw a dress in the window of a big department store. And she said, "Oh boy, that's pretty." So she said, "You all wait out here." And she went in there to price it. And she said, "I can't afford that." So she got a picture in her mind of what it was and how it was. She went home and she bought the material, went home and cut out a pattern, and you couldn't tell the difference between the one there and the one in the window that she'd made. So she was quite a seamstress. Most all of the clothes we had were homemade, but you couldn't tell them from a store-bought kind, you know. And then she was good when we went to school. We could walk to school, and we had a that family dog that used to go to church with us, he walked to school with us every morning. And then when the bell rang and we went into the classrooms, the dog would go home. And somehow he seemed to know when we were going to be out of school. And when we come home, when we get out of class, he was sitting there on the playgrounds waiting for us. And he'd walk home with us. So, yeah, I had quite a nice childhood. We were all real close family. We really were. Every other summer, one summer we'd go to Florida to my grandfather, my mother's folks, and then the next summer we'd go up to Michigan to my dad's folks for a vacation. And mostly the Florida trips are where we were most comfortable with. My grandfather, my mother's family, lived on a lake down in Florida, and they had a dock, and we could swim in there if we wanted to swim in the lake, but they never would let us swing by ourselves because there was alligators in the lake. But we were all right. We never got taken or anything, but we had a lot of fun when we went down to Grandpa's, and they had a big orchard. He had oranges and grapefruit in this orchard, yeah. And my grandmother would say, "You want some grapefruit for breakfast?" Yeah. Well, go out there and pick them, but don't pick any more than what you're going to eat, because they used to sell them, by the bushel and stuff. And so we enjoyed that. And then they had oranges. We'd go sit in a tree, up in the tree, and peel oranges and eat them. We had a lot of fun when we went to Grandpa Hoffman's, but like I said, he paid more attention to us than Grandma did, for some reason or other. But he was quite a character. We really did like him. She was a great mother. She was. Yeah. She died entirely too young. She was 37 years old when she died. When they took her away, she was sick in El Paso right after we got there, and she was pregnant at the time. And they took her away, and when they took her out the door, we were all standing around on the front porch crying, all the kids. And she said, "That's all right." She said, "Aunt Bertha's going to take care of you." And Bertha ended up marrying my father. But she stayed with us for a long time before they were married. When we went to the funeral home to see Mother, well, Dad said to us, "I want you to get a good look at your mother because you're never going to see her again." And that, of course, that tore us up. She was buried on the 4th of July. And I had gone to bed, and my sister and I shared a bed together, and this was in El Paso. And Barbara was asleep, and it had been Mother died on the 4th of July, so it was hot then. But we had the window open, and there was no breeze at all. It was just hot. And my mother came to me, and she had the same gown on that she had on, a blue gown in her casket. And she sat on the side of my bed, and she said, "I came back to tell you that I love you." And she said, "You be good." And she said, "Mind Aunt Bertha." We called her Aunt Bertha then. And she said, "Just remember that I love you." And she was gone. And she wouldn't let me touch her. She had this beautiful blue gown on that she had on in her casket. But she said, "Don't touch me." But she said, "I just came back to tell you everything's going to be all right." And she said, "Bertha will take care of you all from now on." And then she was gone. And I started to cry, and Barbara said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Mother was here." And she said, "Honey, you just dreamed it." And I said, "No, I didn't. Never even woke my sister up that was sleeping beside me." And so...
Are you sure you weren't sleeping?
I wasn't sleeping. No, I was wide awake. She sat on the side of my bed. She had the same blue dress on she had on in her casket. And I was going to put my arms around her, and she said, "No, honey, you can't touch me, but I just came back to tell you that I love you and everything's going to be all right." And then she was gone. And I started to cry, and my stepmother, who wasn't my stepmother then, she came in and she said, "What's the matter?" I said, "Mother was here." And she said, "No, honey, you just dreamed it." And I said, "I didn't dream it. She was here." And I told her what had happened and everything, but I think she thought I must have, you know, it really didn't happen. But it'd been real hot that day because she was buried on the 4th of July, so it was hot. But that night, when she came to me, we had the windows open and the curtains started blowing, and it was nice and cool in there when Mother was there. And then she disappeared, and that was the end of it. But I still to this day, and I will till the day I die, that my mother was there. Why she came just to me, I don't know, but she did. And I know that. I'd swear to it that it really happened. I still feel to this day that when I go, either she's going to come after me or Lester will. Or maybe both of them. Who knows, you know. But whoever it is, it's okay with me. I'm ready for it, you know. So what my stepmother did was she used to have, there were 3 of us girls, and she used to have us take turns. One night a week I had to cook supper, and my sister did, and so forth. And that's how I learned to cook, that way. But when you cut it down from all the people we were cooking for at home, and then you get married and it's just the 2 of you, it's kind of hard to change the recipes, you know. He said, "Who's coming to dinner?" And I said, "Nobody, it's just you and me." And he said, "Well, you cooked enough for an army," so we ate on it for about 3 days. Yeah, that was something else. My sister and I heard that they were teaching dancing or having dancing in the Methodist church, which was just across the street from the Baptist church where our family attended. And they didn't believe in dancing in the Baptist church, you know. So we snuck over there to the Methodist church. And that's where I met him. I think I should have stayed a Baptist. But anyway, that's all water under the bridge. But we dated, I guess, for, what, about a year, I guess, until we were married. And I remember when we were getting the church ready for the wedding, for our wedding, I had gotten my hair done and so forth, and we passed the church, and his dad's car was parked out in front of the church where we were going to be married, and I thought, what is he up to now? I thought he was going to try and change everything, you know, that we decided to do for the wedding, but he didn't. But he was quite a character. So we dated, I guess, about 6-8 months, didn't we, Lester, before we got engaged? And then my mother and dad liked him. You know, they of course, that was getting rid of another kid out of the house, I guess, since there was 5 of us living at home at the time. But it turned out all right, you know, all these years. My hair is white now, and I can't remember my name half the time, but that's the way it is. Kermit Gibbons was the minister that married us. And getting back to getting ready for the wedding, I had come back from the beauty shop the day we were going to get married that night, and his car was parked out in front of the church, and I said to my mother, "Wonder what he's doing over there. He don't have any business at the church." He was in there. I said, "If he's touching anything and changing the arrangements, I'm going to kill him." But anyway, he didn't. But
how do you remember how it was arranged?
How the church was?
Do you remember how it all looked? And
oh, it was really pretty. Yeah, we had flowers up on the altar, and we didn't go to a big expense. I remember I had on a navy blue suit with a white blouse underneath it, and navy blue hose. Back then, your hose were the same, you know, if you were going to be in style. So I had navy blue shoes and navy blue hose and navy blue suit. I did get married in a white. I could have, but I didn't. First few years after we were married, well, we rented a little apartment. I can't remember what street it was in San Antonio.
Erie.
On Erie Avenue, Lester said. And it was a small apartment, but it had an old stove in it that stood on tall legs like the old ones used to, with a high oven next to it. And yeah, first meal I cooked, Lester said, "My gosh, well, you're cooking for an army," because before I was married, my sisters and I always had to take turns cooking, supper for the family, so we'd learn how to cook. And I cooked enough for an army. He said, "We got company coming," and I said, "No." I remember, what was it, meatloaf, I think, and baked potatoes. Huh?
Potatoes and gravy.
But anyway, it was a big meal. I think we ate off of it for 2 days, so we wouldn't waste it. But I was working in a drugstore where my dad was a druggist at the time, but I worked behind the soda fountain. And let's see, I think I made $18 a week. Yeah, I made $18 a week, didn't I, Lester? No.
Made $25.
I made $25 a week. That's right. That was a lot of money back then, $25 a week. We used to get some real characters in there at the drugstore. You got to where you knew everybody, you know, and that would come in there regularly. This man used to come in for breakfast every morning when I was working, and he always had the same thing. One day he was complaining about he didn't like the way I cooked it, and I said, "All right, you just come back here and cook it yourself." And he did. But you get to where you know all the people that come in there regularly, you know, and you joke around with them and stuff, and I enjoyed working there. But and I could walk to work from where our apartment was. It was only like 3 blocks.
Do you remember the first car you got?
The first car?
Yeah. You said you didn't have a car at that point, but
No.
you remember when you guys did first get
I remember when he brought that thing home, and I thought, I'm not going to ride in that. It was black, I think, if I remember right. And when the horn honked, it'd go, "Ooga, ooga," and embarrass the heck out of it. But anyway, it was transportation, so. He wasn't there when Gene was born. I'd gone to the hospital. My stepmother took me to the hospital, and I was in labor. And he was working, he was working at going out to the brewery. Somebody had drowned, and that's where he was. And
the San Antonio Fire Emergency
yeah.
Corps.
At where?
San Antonio Fire Emergency Corps.
Yeah. And they were out fishing somebody out that had gotten drunk and drowned. And he wasn't there at the hospital. But then it wouldn't have done him any good anyway, because he couldn't have done anything anyway.
Tell him how much it cost to have Gene at the hospital.
Oh, yeah. And the bill for your father was, what, $1.50 a day?
$3.25.
$2.20. Huh?
$3.25.
$3.25.
$3.25 a day is what it cost, and I was in the hospital for about 4 days with him. So he was a cheap baby. I got him in the bargain basement. Oh, gee. We would like to have had more children, but we couldn't, and so we adopted Kathy when she was a little baby in Thailand. And she was 18 months old when we got her. And pretty soon she's got her birthday again. She's going to be 50 years old. Yeah, so been a long time, but we always enjoyed her. She was a good girl.